Today I will attempt to explain one of the most complicated to understand rules in the CFL, the no yards rule. What does it mean? When does it apply? Where does it come from? It comes into play especially on onside punts, which is one of the most popular and appreciated plays that I showcase on this channel. So let's dive in. The no yards rule is a rule in Canadian football that applies on most types of kicks. It states that the team receiving a kick must be given an imaginary 5-yard radius with no players of the kicking team in it in order to safely recover the kick and be able to run a little bit. This is especially handy when you remember that there is no fair catch in the CFL, so this is a means of protection to make up for that in some ways. If a kicking team is within the 5-yard halo, as determined by the referee, then it's a 15-yard penalty and a first down for the receiving team. Sound easy enough? Well, it's not. There are some players on the kicking team who are able to go inside of the 5-yard halo. This includes the kicker and anyone who is behind the kicker at the time the ball was kicked. They are permitted to enter the halo and recover the ball for their team and are considered onside. In this video, I will be referring to players who were not behind the kicker as not onside, as opposed to offside, since offside suggests that they were across the line of scrimmage illegally, just like on a regular offensive play. But it should be noted that the CFL rulebook does refer to players in front of the kicker as offside. If an onside player does recover the ball, he can pick it up and run with it as far as he can. The no yards rule applies on punts, missed field goals, and drop kicks that don't go through the upright. However, it does not apply on kickoffs, drop kicks that go through the upright, or dribbled balls. You might be thinking to yourself, why not on kickoffs? Well, in theory, it does apply on kickoffs, but remember that everyone on a kickoff is either behind the kicker or the kicker, so there's no way in practice anyone could ever be flagged for no yards if everyone's onside. That's why, by the way, there are onside kickoffs only in the NFL. It's a holdover from this. Drop kicks that go through the upright are considered drop goals, just like in the NFL, but I'm going to mention it specifically because CFL rules surrounding drop kicks are way cooler. For in the CFL, you can do an open field drop kick through the upright for 3 points. Meaning, if your team was down by 2 points but you were too far for a field goal, the QB could pass to a wide receiver who could then turn around and drop kick through the uprights for a 3-point drop goal. This has never happened before, though, and probably never will due to the pointed shape of the football now, as opposed to the rounder balls that were used when this rule was first implemented as a rugby holdover. So if a drop kick goes through the uprights, it's a dead ball even if kicked from the open field, so you don't need to worry about no yards there. Dribble kicks are defined as kicking a ball that is loose and on the ground. These are treated basically the same as fumbles, and there is no yards of penalty applied here. You may have seen this played by Montreal, which is often called the dribble kick, but technically it's just a very short punt, so no yards would apply in this situation. If an onside player enters the 5-yard halo but doesn't recover the ball, that is perfectly legal, and there will not be a no yards call. However, if he chooses to enter the halo and not recover the ball, he can't interfere with the returner returning the ball, meaning he couldn't just truck him because he was onside. If both the kicker and the returner recover the punt and there is simultaneous possession, meaning they both have equal possession of the ball, what do you think happens? Well, on a pass, it's ruled offense gets possession when the ball is simultaneously caught, but on a kick, it's ruled that the receiving team gets possession. In my opinion, this is one of the worst rules in the CFL rulebook, but not many people know about it since it has never happened before, as far as I know. Imagine you are the punter, sprinting down the field to recover your punt, diving headfirst for the ball on the ground, risking a concussion, only for the other team to pick it up with you and get a first down as if nothing interesting had happened. Terrible rule, but it is yet to be seen if it will ever come into play. Prior to the 2022 season, the penalty yardage depended on whether or not the ball had bounced prior to being touched. Since footballs bounce in all kinds of crazy directions, the thinking was that since it was harder to know where the halo was if it was constantly moving around, it was only a 5-yard penalty, but if it was caught directly, it was a 15-yard penalty because it was more avoidable, and that 15 yards was enforced from the spot the returner was tackled. So even if the returner ran 20 yards, the 15 yards would be added to the end of that 20 yards for a total of a 35-yard gain from where the receiving team touched the ball first. This rule, in my opinion, was pretty unfair. The whole point of no yards is to give them a chance to return it, and if they can, why should the other team be penalized so harshly? The league seemed to agree, and starting in 2022, all kicks with a no yards penalty moved up 15 yards from the spot of the foul as opposed to the end of the return. However, it's still possible to get a 5-yard no yards penalty if the ball was accidentally touched by a not onside member of the kicking team, or if the kick was deflected in any way. If a member of the receiving team fakes to pick up the ball, at that point there is no more 5-yard halo and anyone can pick up the ball. It is also legal for the receiving team player who faked to recover it to be tackled. You might be wondering, there aren't any circular markings on the field other than the number 0, so how do they know if the players were within a 5-yard radius? Well, it's entirely in the eyes of the referee to determine whether or not a player is in the radius, and it can be very controversial. Probably the most controversial no yards non-call was in the 2023 Grey Cup. Montreal received a punt which they fumbled, so they tried to challenge for no yards so they could keep possession of the ball. While the Winnipeg player in question was definitely on the left of the yard line that was 5 yards away, the refs deemed that he gave yards because a radius implies a circle, and apparently if you had drawn a circle it would have been curved and the Winnipeg player would not have been in it. The replay officials do not have some magical AI circle they can draw to be 100% sure. It's a lot of guesstimation. In my opinion, the league should have a graphic that shows up on every punt with a halo around the returner, so the audience can be more sure. Although then it would look like a video game. Remember earlier I was talking about that dribble kick by Montreal that was actually just a really short punt? Well, you might be wondering, in what scenario would you need to punt that short? I mean, wouldn't you want to kick it really far downfield to recover it? Well, the reason why is because any punt that is from behind the line of scrimmage, that is recovered past the line of scrimmage, is automatically a first down, regardless of whether or not it goes the required distance for a first down. So on this scenario, it was 2nd and 18, so obviously it's way easier to just kick it over the line of scrimmage and recover it for a first down than to try to pass 18 yards or to try to kick it all the way down the field. This rule may be changed in 2024 because Montreal did it twice in 2023 and really shone a spotlight on this rule, which not many people knew about, and it definitely confused a lot of Americans. In amateur forms of Canadian football, the ball has to go 10 yards if it's kicked from behind the line of scrimmage to be recovered for a first down. But just like in the CFL, it doesn't actually have to cross the yard line that would otherwise be required to get a first down. Personally, I'm in favor of this rule. I think it's just really smart, and people don't often consider how many times that this rule has failed because the defense can be so close. Where does the no yards rule come from? There's not a lot of information about the origins of the no yards rule, but it's been around for longer than anyone's been alive. The earliest known reference is apparently in a rulebook from 1896, but I can't find a PDF of it anywhere, so it remains a bit of a mystery. According to the internet, an interesting earlier version of this rule was introduced in 1929, when Canadian football adopted the strange, novel, and revolutionary concept of the forward pass, and any incomplete pass was treated like a punt, and the passing team had to give yards to the defense to recover it. I'm not sure, however, how long this rule stuck around. So in conclusion, I hope you learned something new today, and if you don't already watch the incredible mess of confusion that is the CFL, please consider doing so. Preseason starts in May. If you don't live in Canada, you can watch for free on the league streaming service, CFL Plus, and also on CBS if you're from the States. And that's all for today.